Saludos, familia de Salva Jesús, su administrador del grupo Todo sobre Lucha Libre, y hoy tenemos una nueva entrevista a la luchadora Masha Slamovich. Y si ustedes se están preguntando de dónde es ese apellido, pues es rusa, señores y señores. Hello, Masha. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fine, thank you. You're Russian, that's correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Well, Masha, COVID-19, does this have affected you in a mentally or physical way?
Thankfully, it has not affected me physically. Thankfully, I have not caught the coronavirus. God willing, we'll keep it like that. Mentally, I have to say, in the very, not the beginning, but maybe the worst part of it, towards the end of March and April, when everything got, basically shut down worldwide, it definitely affected my mood, I would say, because I had lost several important bookings, wrestling shows. And of course, nobody wants that to happen. And that was very frustrating. The coronavirus was obviously out of mine or anybody else's control. So for a little while, I was quite down about the situation.
You live right now in Russia or not?
Right now, I'm living in Tokyo, actually.
Russian living in Tokyo. Imagine that. What or who was your inspiration to become a wrestler?
My inspiration from a very young age would have to be Chris Benoit, and The Undertaker also was one of my favorites, but not somebody I could really emulate in my wrestling style, considering I'm not 6'11". But I definitely found Chris Benoit and his wrestling style to be very relatable. And after becoming more familiar with the internet and more wrestling history, I discovered Dynamite Kid, and he is obviously a very big influence on myself and my wrestling style.
You said younger, but here on Instagram, he said that you only have 22 years, so you're still younger. I mean,
well, I'm not by any means, so.
Okay, who trains you?
I was trained by Johnny Rods in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you went to a match? How do you feel walking to the ring? With whom do you have that match? Do you win or do you lose your match?
So my first match actually happened here in Tokyo, and it was a six woman tag match. I actually have the names written down because terrible memory. Oh, Christ almighty. So much paperwork and so little organization. Oh, there we go. The 6-woman tag that happened for Reina Pro Wrestling, it was myself, Konami, and Yako versus Hanako Nakamori, Leon, and Mikaida.
Okay.
Our team and myself lost that match, unfortunately.
But do you feel nervous when you started walking through the ring or not?
I remember standing backstage, and I had waited, I trained for so long, for almost 2 years before I had my debut. So I felt very excited, but I wouldn't say nervous. I suppose I felt pressure, being coming to Japan representing the World of Unpredictable Wrestling, Johnny Rod's school, I obviously did not want to make an embarrassment of myself or the school, especially in my debut in a country such as important as Japan. So I felt pressured to go out there and perform to the very best of my ability at that time. And I do believe that in that match, I gave the best of my very young and very green ability.
Masha Slamovich, is that your real name or not?
No, that is definitely not my real name.
Okay. Uh, you are a face or a heel?
Most of the time, I am definitely a heel.
Okay, interesting. How do your parents feel when you told them, "Hey, I want to be a wrestler"?
Well, I had always told them ever since I saw wrestling, the first day I saw it, I said, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to be a wrestler." And they were like, "Yeah, sure. You're going to get older, you'll grow out of it." And I just kept coming with the idea. And then I found a school and I continued to pester them to sign up. And they they were supportive, but they thought it was completely crazy. They still to this day, but obviously I became a wrestler, so they can't really they can't really deny it at this point.
How many years have you been in the wrestling business?
On the 22nd of this month, it's going to be my 6th-year anniversary.
Oh, okay, six years. Okay, tell us the history. How a Russian girl turns to be on Japan and wrestling on Japan. Tell us the story of how this happened. You never wrestled in Russia?
I did wrestle in Russia last
Okay.
year. I came in January to visit my grandmother and my family before I was going off for a 3-month tour of Canada. And I had discovered IWF Russia, and I got in
Okay.
contact with them, and I ended up wrestling 2 matches for them while I was over there. And I was actually supposed to come back this year, but coronavirus obviously put a little bit of a damper on those plans. But the story of how I ended up in Japan is obviously the first tour that I was here was in 2016 for Reina Pro Wrestling, which I came representing Johnny Rod's school, the World of Unpredictable Wrestling, for my first excursion. Following that, I would proceed to wrestle anywhere in the United States, Canada, Russia, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and I completed a tryout for Marvelous Pro Wrestling, which is the company that I'm with now, I believe
Okay.
in August of 2019, and I arrived here on January 24th of 2020 to begin what was supposed to be a 3-month tour, but apparently now I live here and I continued to work with Marvelous Pro Wrestling throughout the duration of my stay.
Uh, do you have any communication with your parents?
Yes, I communicate with them through Facebook Messenger or text messages.
I think they feel sad because I mean they're in Russia, you're in Japan, and maybe they soon it will be Christmas, so maybe they feel lonely. I don't know. Do you feel lonely on this time of Christmas, being you there and your family in Russia?
My most of my family is in Russia. My mother and my father are currently in New York City, actually. But
Okay.
either way, they're obviously not in Tokyo. It would be ridiculous for me to say that I don't miss them because I do. But I'm happy here. This is the only place I've ever wanted to be. I'm living my dream. They know that I am as well. So even though we miss each other and I'm not going to be home for the holidays this year, they know that this is where I belong and they're happy for me and we communicate, we call each other, we try to stay in contact as much as possible throughout this time.
That's nice. How fans reacted to a woman from Russia being on their country? Do they receive you well?
They definitely received me well. The Japanese fans are some of the best fans that I've ever encountered in the world. They're respectful and sweet and like, I couldn't say enough good things about the people of Japan. I will say that me being a heel and me being less happy go lucky, if you will, they're a little standoffish. They're a little confused because they're used to, say American women coming over and being all happy and butterflies and smiles. And I am like 180 degrees opposite of that. So it's different, but they've come around and they've learned they've learned to love it.
How did you learn the English so well?
So I didn't know English until I was 5, and then I started school in New York City, and I
Okay.
learned English. I learned English in school.
It sounds very good. That's why I'm asking you. Have you won any championship belt so far?
I have won 4 championship belts throughout my career. The first being at Johnny Rod's, a World of Unpredictable Wrestling promotion, being the North American Women's Champion, followed by me being in New York Victory Pro Wrestling Women's Champion. I believe the next one I won was in Canada for Classic Championship Wrestling, and followed by Women's Champion of Nickel City Wrestling in Buffalo, New York.
Okay. Who do you think it was your best adversary on the ring that you say, it was tough, it was not easy to fight against this woman? Who do you think it could be?
Oof. I've had so many matches. I've had so many matches. Goodness gracious. I would have to say probably one of the intense people I've ever wrestled was back in 2016 when I wrestled Mima Shimoda, and she gave me a good run for my money, and she won the match, I assure you, back in 2016.
Right now, which one do you like to wrestle that you haven't wrestled so far?
I was supposed to wrestle Meiko Satomura earlier last month, I believe, but unfortunately the match got rescheduled. So I am happily looking forward to that day coming one day.
How do you compare the wrestling of Russia with the wrestling of Japan? It is different, it's more or less the same. How do you compare it?
So wrestling in Japan does a little bit more working on the right side, which is kind of similar towards the Mexican style of wrestling, while
Mhm.
Russia does what is similar to England and the United States, which is more on the left. The pace in Japan is definitely a lot faster compared to Russian wrestling as well. So I think that would be the biggest difference is just the tempo and the style of the matches themselves.
Have you learned anything in the Japanese language or not?
I've been studying. I'm picking up more and more words and phrases. I'm learning to read or like decipher the what is it, hiragana, katakana, all that stuff. It's difficult. I gotta say, it's one of the most difficult languages. Actually, it's the most difficult language I've had to learn. But I'm enjoying it, and I look forward to learning more. Hopefully, I gotta say, my Japanese and my Spanish have like mixed together, and it's just a mess. Like I'll try to say something in Japanese, and then I'll just add like Spanish words in there. I'm like, this is not right.
Okay. Have you tried to speak in Japanese to the fans or not?
I did have to cut one promo when I wrestled for Heat Up Pro Wrestling in Japanese. I mean, I had to say like 3 words, and I'm pretty sure I butchered.
So I imagine those Japanese like, what did she say? You know?
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
if you
like
have
that accent. They're like, just stop.
okay, if you have the opportunity to go to the United States, which company do you like? WWE, AEW, or Impact Wrestling?
Honestly, I'm not at a level where I can walk up to them and give them something, put something on their table. So if any of those companies came looking for me and sent me an invitation or would like to collaborate, I would be happy to work with any of those three companies.
No, because sometimes WWE likes foreign wrestler, and you're Russian, and maybe they can make you, a wrestler in there. Like, hey, here comes the Russian, like a couple of wrestlers that come from different parts of the world. You never know. And in Mexico, do you think you would like to go to Mexico to wrestle?
100%, 100%. As soon as you know, whenever my tenure in Japan comes to a bit of a halt and the pandemic is over, I would love to travel, wrestle in Australia, wrestle in Mexico, and then probably come right back to Japan. But I 100% want to go wrestle in Mexico.
Which one do you prefer, Triple A or Consejo Mundial?
Both of them. I've wrestled people from both CMLL and AAA, and they're fantastic athletes. I would love to work for either or both of the companies.
What can we expect from you in the next couple of years as a wrestler?
To be honest with you, I couldn't even give you a prognosis for the upcoming year, because if you would have told me last year that I was going to live in Japan, I would have told you you're crazy. You know, I have no idea where the world is going to take me next. I live on the road. I absolutely love traveling and living out of my suitcase and just going from country to country, tour to tour. All I can say is for the foreseeable future, I'm going to remain in Japan working for Marvelous Pro Wrestling and, other companies, for example, Sendai Girls. I'm going to stay here and do my best. And, whatever happens, whenever restrictions of coronavirus are lifted, I have no idea where the world will take me, but I look forward to the journey.
Have you heard about the wrestler Akire?
That name is familiar. Where are they from?
Well, she's a Latin girl that she have a dream to go to Japan, and she told me in an interview that she was expected to be there only 3 months, and she said, "So far, I'm being here, and I'm a great wrestler here on Japan, you know."
That's right. I know her. She works for Pure J right now.
Yeah, yes, that's if she can do it, you can do it. I mean, the dream. You only have to have a dream. She told me she only pick up some clothes. She went on a plane. She go over there, and right now she's a wrestler in Japan. I mean, you can do it too. You can be a hit on Japan, Russia, anywhere if you wanted to.
I've seen her stuff on social media and she's doing really well for herself. And she's entirely correct when she says all you need is a dream because, when I was 16 years old and I just stepped foot into a ring, I could never imagine that I would do so much that I have done in the past 6 years. If you would have told me back then, I would have been flabbergasted. It's when you put in the effort and you truly love what you do, anything is possible. Yeah, it's cheesy. Everybody says it, but that's real life and it's true.
The guy who trains you, how does he feel knowing that his student right now is on Japan, representing him and representing Russia, representing everything. How does he feel right now? Do you have any communication with him?
We do communicate. He sends me, like wrestling clips, more things that I could study and more things that I could try to make me better. I saw Johnny right before I left, probably a couple of days before I got on the plane. And he told me he was proud of me. And that meant so much to me because I hadn't seen him for a couple of years until I came to see him before I left to Japan for my second tour. And he told me that because originally I was coming for 3 months, and he told me, he's like, oh, you're going to go crazy after the first month. You're going to want to go home. And now I'm here like, hi, Johnny, it's been 10 months and I'm still here. Granted, I'm crazy. I'm definitely crazy now, but.
I want to apologize because I say Akire and it's Akari.
Yeah, I figured out that's who you were talking about.
Yeah. Sometimes I get a little bit confused with the name. And she told me that. She told me, I only thought I was going to be here 3 months. And so far, here I am, Dreams can become true. Maybe someday we can see you on WWE or AEW or Impact Wrestling. You never know. The most
I assure
important.
you, whenever I come back to the United States, there are going to be things happening. I promise you that.
Never lose your essence. Never become this kind of wrestler that, hey, I'm here in WWE. I'm not going to give you any interview. I don't want to say hello to anybody. Never become that kind of wrestler because the fans put you here, but the fans also can get you over here.
Absolutely. And if anything, wrestlers who do carry themselves with that kind of attitude, I hope coronavirus taught them a lesson, because now that we have restrictions on how many fans we can have in a building, and for example, in Japan, fans aren't allowed to cheer as loud and throw the colorful tape that they normally do. I hope that all the wrestlers appreciate their fans, because now when you have to have closed tapings and you can't wrestle in front of an audience, you see how important their essence is to our work. And we are nothing without them. We wrestle for the fans. Otherwise, what are we doing this for?
Would you like to return to Russia to wrestle again over in your country?
Absolutely. When I'm back in Russia, I have plans to work with IWF Russia again, and hopefully Northern Storm Wrestling up in St. Petersburg.
You haven't lost your Russian accent, did you?
No, I have not.
Okay. So I imagine you being here talking English, you go over there, you have to talk Russian, and then you say you have also a problem with Spanish. I imagine you in Mexico trying to speak Spanish. I mean, it's going to be like, okay, where am I? What language I'm supposed to talk,
It is an absolute soup in my head of what is very confusing to be inside my head sometimes, with all the Spanish and the Russian and some Japanese and some English in there. It's crazy.
No, if you go to Russia, I imagine the fans listen to you talking in English and they will say, why is she talking English if she knows Russian language? It's going to be like, wait a minute, what is going on here?
Well,
Be
most Russian schools, they teach a certain level of English. Obviously, not as American schools maybe as much, but they definitely most people learn some sort of English nowadays, at least in this day and age.
Okay, how do you feel with this interview?
I think it's been going pretty great.
Okay, how can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at Masha Slamovich, on Twitter at Masha Slamovich, and I recently created a Patreon at Masha Slamovich as well, so you can find me there also.
Okay. Para las personas, ¿verdad?, que quieran contactarla, en Instagram, cualquier cosa, pues cuando yo postee la entrevista, pues voy a ponerle el nombre de ella. 22 años, señores y señores, de Rusia, está en Japón, escríbanle. You think that somebody write you in Spanish, would you understand or not?
It's a little bit more difficult now that I've been living in Japan, but my Spanish is still pretty decent. I can still communicate if I think hard enough. So I think if people write me in Spanish, I will be able to write back.
Okay. Bueno, mi gente, si le escriben en español, en inglés, if they write you in Japan, also you will understand or not?
I'm gonna use Google Translate for that one.
I'm just trying to write because I think that the writing of the Japanese people is very different. It's very like difficult or something. I don't know.
It's very different. It's every little brush stroke is like a different sound, and you have to put the sounds together. And I do not know the sounds. The writing is mind blowing to me. I can't understand it.
Okay. Masha, I'm very proud of you. You're still young. I know that you have potential. I know that you're going to have more championship belt. You're going to make Russia proud. I hope you can return someday to Russia with a championship from Japan and say, "Hey, I made it in Japan. I'm here. I feel proud." You- I know that your parents are very proud of you. I know that sometimes you talk with them, say, "Hey, mom, hey, dad, I'm here in Japan. I'm trying to live my dream, and we suspect you will have a very good future because you're still young and you're learning and you're humble. That's the most important thing that a wrestler should have. And I know that you love wrestling. You have it in your blood, and we hope the best of the best for you. I mean, I don't know what to say because you look excellent. You look great. You look good. And I wish you the best of the best, really, with the bottom of my heart.
That means so much to me, and all I can do is thank you so much.
Okay. Do you have any last words to your fans?
To all my fans, I appreciate you. I am so thankful for your support. Maybe even if you just discovered me yesterday and you're going to start supporting me now, and if you've been supporting me for the last 6 years, everything I do, my wrestling is for the fans. And I love wrestling and I love the fans with all of my essence and all of my heart. I thank you, and I'm going to continue giving you my very best that I can give you.
I'm gonna be watching your career. I'm gonna be watching if you have some kind of matches. If you want to send information about when and where you're going to have your next match, we're gonna give you a good promo because you deserve it.
Well, in that case, I do have a couple of upcoming dates that I can share with you.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I'm wrestling for Marvelous Pro Wrestling at Shinkiba First Ring. You can find information about that at info_marvelous on Twitter. Remote tickets are available for purchase from around the world. So everybody, from Puerto Rico, Mexico, America, everywhere will be able to watch the show. On November 20th, there's going to be a huge, huge women's wrestling event in Japan. It's called Assemble Part 2. It's going to feature wrestlers from Marvelous Pro Wrestling, including myself, wrestlers from Stardom, wrestlers from Pure J. Akari is going to be on that show as well. We're going to have Oz Academy, T Hearts, Sendai Girls as well. So many wrestlers are going to be performing on this legendary show. For example, Dump Matsumoto, Chigusa Nagayo, Kaoru Ito, all going to be wrestling that night. And they have an Instagram. It's Assemble Women's Pro Wrestling. And tickets are available, again, for worldwide purchase for any country. There's going to be a live show as well as replays. And Sendai Girls is also running a show at Korakuen Hall on November 29th, which is going to be featuring Marvelous Pro Wrestling roster versus Sendai Girls roster, which is also going to have remote tickets available for viewing.
This is on Tokyo, right?
Yes, this is in Tokyo.
Miren la diferencia, miren. La diferencia entre la entrevista y cómo es esta joven dando de qué hablar en Tokio, señoras y señores. O sea, los sueños se pueden hacer realidad. O sea, echen hacia adelante, no dejen que nadie les diga que no pueden. Never mind if people talk in a negative way for a positive way. The most important thing is that they talking about you. The day they don't talk about you, that's the day that you have to be pretty worried, because you gotta say, hey, nobody's talking about me. What's going on? Remember always that.
Well, they do have a saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Bueno, mi gente, esto ha sido todo por el momento. Le damos las gracias a Masha. Posiblemente pues, ella puede entender un par de palabritas que estoy diciendo. Es posible. Sometimes, do you understand some words that people say in Spanish?
Yes, sometimes I'm able to pick out words and pretty much put a sentence together. It's like Jenga.
Así que mi gente, Masha Slamovich, búsquela en Instagram, Facebook, escríbanle, que si es en español, ella busca la manera, ¿verdad? If they write you in Spanish, you can look in a dictionary and try to figure out what they say, because it's pretty easy. Escríbanle en español, ella busca un diccionario, ella busca la manera de responderles también en español. En inglés, claro está, el que sepa ruso. Is there somebody who speak and write on Russian? She understand it. Maybe not Japanese, because she's a little bit confused about the Japanese.
If you write me in Japanese, I'll use Google Translate and we'll figure it out. It's all right.
If somebody gives you something writing in Japanese, you will not understand it. That's correct?
No.
Así que si alguien le escribe en japonés, o sea, no, ella no lo va a entender. Sinceramente, gracias. Thank you very much, Masha. You're very sweet, you're very cute, and you're going to be a champion in Japan, champion in Russia, and we hope we can see you someday in Mexico and on the United States, Puerto Rico, Panama, Colombia, Peru, all around the world, representing your great country of Russia. When you go to Japan to finish the interview, do you have the flag of Russia? You represent Russia or not?
Of course, I have my flag with me.
Mi gente, cuando ella va hacia la lucha, ella lleva su banderita de Rusia bien orgullosa. Así que, mi gente, esto ha sido todo por el momento. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, Masha. Y esto es todo por el momento. Hasta la próxima entrevista. Thank you very much, Masha.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight.
Thank you.